Sustainability means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. If we care enough. If we care enough. If we care enough.
I'm Tavis Smiley, and I am thrilled to have you hanging out with us today in this final hour of our program on the very first day of Black History Month 2024. So happy Black History Month to you. Of course, around here we do Black History every day. And I promised you a couple hours ago it's going to be a blacker than black show because it is the first day of Black History Month. Have I lied? Have I lied? Have I lied? I don't think so. In this final hour today, two more conversations on the B side of this hour. Jelani Natty about Black Men Hike. We'll talk about Black Men Hike, healing, bonding, and conquering anxieties one step at a time. But we commence this hour with a premier voice on colonial oppression, Joyce Lechin, who works to deconstruct colonial power structures the world over. Joyce, how are you today?
Good morning, Tavis. I am really well. Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on the program. Glad we have a few minutes to talk here. Let me start with a couple big questions, broad questions, and we'll narrow as we move through our dialogue here. But I introduced you a moment ago, of course, as one of the premier voices around the globe on colonial oppression. What does colonial oppression look like for you today?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this special day, first day of Black History Month. I'm very honored to be speaking with you. What colonial oppression looks like for me, I would say that I am very privileged in many ways. I am a Black person, but in many ways, my proximity to whiteness has afforded me certain privileges and being shielded from the biggest aspects of oppression. However, I think that it comes with the responsibility of talking about it because, well, my ability to speak English, for instance, even though this is not my mother language, this is how I see it as a responsibility to talk about oppression. And the way that I am affected by oppression is not necessarily specific to me, but it is specific to Black people, to queer people. It is specific to people who live in the society that we live in a capitalist, extractivist, colonial society that relies on separation, on alienation, on severing of connections between people, connections with the self, and connections with community, connection with the environment. All of those connections are severed, are cut, are separated, are policed by the system. And those are the ways that it affects me as well as a citizen of the world, and more specifically as a colonized body, which includes my queerness and my Blackness. And my neurodivergence.
We live in a world that is ever more divisive. We live in a world that is becoming more and more where people in this world are becoming more and more nativist by the day, which leads me to ask, why speak in the first place? Why speak out? Or put another way, who cares?
So I think that everybody has a role in making a change. I mean, those who want a change, everybody has a role, and this may not be the same for everyone. I think that understanding how systems of oppression work is the first step before we can even consider dismantling them. And I may not be the person who will lead the revolution, but I think that I can help doing my bit by explaining how oppression works, how we are affected by it in ways that may not be obvious, in ways that may not be overt, but that affect everyone, including the oppressor, even though I do not want to excuse the oppressor and put them in the same boat as the oppressed, but showing that the oppressor is also affected by the system of oppression and creates an atmosphere and a society that is hostile and toxic to everyone. I think that this is very important. And I think that this is my job, trying to make people understand how bad things are and hopefully also give them the motivation to want to change things. So I do not claim to have solutions, but I can help asking questions. And so this is the answer to who cares. We cannot change, we cannot create a better world if we don't understand how this one is bad and in which way it is doing us harm.
When we come forward, I want to come to that point you just raised now about how bad things are. That was your phrase that you're calling. Your avocation is to speak out about how bad things are when it comes to colonial oppression. So that's the question, right? How bad are things? We'll get Joris Leshen's answer to that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Okay, everyone gather around. I have some exciting...
Running her shoe factory, Kendra talks the talk and walks the walk.
We're switching to green energy.
She needs a biotech consultant to erase her carbon footprint.
All operations will net zero emissions.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Try Venus for pubic hair and skin, the razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Discover the full regimen of products at GilletteVenus.com.
Get the appliances you need right away at Lowe's. Explore the largest assortment of brands you trust, like Whirlpool, Samsung, and LG, in-store or online at the best values. Plus, take advantage of our everyday financing offers on top items, from refrigerators to laundry pairs. And there's more. Get your new appliances delivered or installed quickly at your convenience. Because Lowe's knows appliances, Lowe's knows home improvement. Subject to credit approval.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park,
Los Angeles, California.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Continuing our conversation now with Joris Lashin. Joris, before I get to your work around educating and deconstructing colonial power structures, you said a moment ago that part of your calling, and I think it's true for all of us who believe that things can be better, is to sound the alarm, to ring the bell, pick your metaphor about how bad things are. So when it comes to people of color, today is the first day of Black History Month. When it comes to us and colonial oppression around the globe, how bad are things?
Well, they're getting worse every time we think this is as bad as it gets. We see that it's getting worse. Of course, I'm thinking about what is happening in Palestine, and so people of color in general. But we see the proof that white supremacy is able to morph into many, many forms, and that even when we thought that 2020 had opened people's eyes, we see that it was just a new iteration of a different form of morphing into something becoming more acceptable, and now we see how white supremacy expresses itself and affects people of color differently than it affects white people. We see the difference between the treatment of Ukrainian people being attacked by Russia and the way that Palestinians are being treated and demonized. And this is, of course, as someone who's not directly affected and who's not being carpet bombed right now, I do not claim to share that same experience, but I think that as a collective trauma that us Black people whose ancestors have been enslaved and have been systemically and systematically dehumanized and demonized, what we're seeing, what we're witnessing is awakening, but also is reopening some wounds, some transgenerational wounds that we have. And I think that because of that, right now, Black people in particular are suffering because we are experiencing, on top of what's already happening, and of course the systemic injustice that we are already experiencing, but we are seeing some very old wounds reopening right now, and that makes it really bad, and that announces the fall of empire. But unfortunately, empires do not know how to fall. If they did, then they wouldn't be falling, and the era that we have entered and that is getting worse and worse is only bringing more violence, and this is quite worrying, I think.
Yep. We often have conversations here in this country. You are a Franco-British, obviously, social communicator. You've lived and worked in 5 countries on 3 continents. We'll talk about that a little bit later here, and what visual that allows you to see, what sort of palette that allows you to paint on when you've lived on 3 continents in 5 countries. I'll come back to that in a second here. But my question is that in this country, we find ourselves often in conversations about whether or not, particularly in a moment like this, and in the election year, as you well know, the question is whether or not we believe that we can ever achieve true multiracial democracy in this republic. Can we ever achieve true multiracial democracy in this republic? That's a question that we wrestle with, ad infinitum, ad nauseum in this country. And yet, it occurs to me as you're talking, that's a question that we could ask about the world house, as Dr. King might call it, the world house. And it might seem weird as a question because clearly there are people of color in various countries and on various continents all around the globe. So at first glance, to ask whether or not we can make all that work seems silly because we're everywhere, people of color. And yet, as I listen to what you lay out and the way you see the colonial oppression that we are experiencing, witnessing every day, that question seems, pretty relevant as to whether or not we can achieve multiracial harmony on the globe, say nothing of the United States. Your thoughts?
Well, the question is first, can we achieve democracy? I think that what we are seeing with the fall of empire is that what we were taught was democracy is becoming more and more obvious that it is not really democracy, because the ability for people and citizens to decide, to be deciding of their own destiny, we see that it's not the case. Even in official democracies, our workplace, we do not get a say in the decisions that affect us the most, that affect our income, that affect our ability to access housing, to access education. Those things are not included in democracy because those things are decided by private or corporate entities, in which we do not get a vote. So already that in itself, the myth of democracy as we know it, as the West knows it, is a myth. Now, the racial part of the question, we know that race is a social construct, and race and racism were invented to justify the exploitation of a group of people. So when we see that democracy has never really been achieved, or at least not in the society that we experience, we then can see that what is called democracy is just a system of oppression and a way of exploitation, exploiting people. So with that in mind, race in itself is a tool of exploitation. So racial democracy, as long as race still exists in the sense that a way of dividing people to create an underclass and a class of oppressor, then race in itself gets in the way of democracy, which is democracy is not even achieved at the moment. So racial democracy is a double impossibility, at least in the current society and in the system and in the choices that we are given. And this is, unfortunately, I think that the notion of democracy is, in reality, and when we talk about democracy, we talk about the illusion choice. And you obviously have it in the US between the illusion of choice between the Democrats and the Republicans. It is not a real choice. That is not really offering a choice. And this is how our democracies today present themselves. It's an illusion of choice.
I'm wrestling with that notion, an illusion of choice. Let me noodle on that for a second. I might get back to that before this conversation wraps in a few minutes. But it is the case that first of all, as you likely know, in this country, we are hurtling toward that day inexorably when America, for the first time ever, will be a country made up of majority people of color. So we will be a minority country not too far down the road, as you likely know. And so there are questions every day about what happens in this country when the good white folk are finally outnumbered. I raise that because as the globe, not just the U.S., but as the globe becomes more colored, we are seeing more and more violence. You raised this issue of violence earlier.
Yes.
And it seems to me that those two things are not disconnected, that the world, the globe is becoming more colored, and we are seeing more violence. Again, I assume you're like me, that you can't disconnect those two realities.
Not only is there correlation, but there's causality between the two. And I wish I had something positive to say about it, but it can only breed violence. I'm currently calling from Brazil, and I'm based in the UK, but I'm right now in Brazil. And Brazilian society is in many ways very similar to the US society. The difference being that Brazil, it's been the case for always, but there's a majority of Black and people of color in Brazil, and white people are a minority. However, we see that this is precisely the reason why Brazil is an extremely racist society, because the white supremacy, in order to maintain itself, could only resort to extreme violence. And the more threatened the power, the privileged, and the supremacy and the systems of oppression are, the more they will resort to violence, be it physical violence, but also cultural violence through epistemicide, for instance. And we see the results in Brazil, the lack of general consciousness, of Black consciousness. And I don't want to generalize, but on average, let's say that Brazil is a society that is very similar to the US, but that didn't know the civil rights movements as the US did. So it would be like a US society, but without Martin Luther King, without Angela Davis, without such names, without Malcolm X. And so this is, if we do not change the course of things, this is where the US are also headed. The more minoritized in demographic terms, the whiteness and when I say whiteness, this is not necessarily only white people, but whiteness as a system of power and oppression and supremacy. The more threatened whiteness will feel, the more violent the system will be. And we see this now. The system is becoming more and more brazenly violent. It's not necessarily becoming more violent because it always was, but it's getting more and more difficult for it to hide it, but it's also less and less necessary for it to hide it because the violence is already so ingrained that there's no need to hide it. When we see the international position of the US, the vetoes of any resolution against Palestinian genocide, for instance, there's no pretending anymore. It's violence, it's white supremacy, just being proud of itself. And unless there's a big change, then this is only going to increase as more and more people of color make up the population of the US or the Americas in general.
We're talking with George LeShand about colonial oppression on this first day of Black History Month. And as I mentioned earlier, he is a Franco-British social commentator. He's lived and worked in 5 countries and 3 continents, which leads me to ask, given that he just said at the moment he's talking to us live from Brazil, how depressing is it? How depressing must it be, no matter where you are in the world, never mind the country, never mind the continent, to see the colonial oppression that we're discussing in real time?
So it is depressing, but there is hope in the sense that we have known, if we look in the past, if we look in the present, there are examples, there are solutions. As I said earlier, coloniality, colonization, colonialism, all things slightly different, but they describe the same phenomenon. It operates by severing, by separating, by categorizing. And so the way to combat that is to create connections with others, connections with the selves, connections with the land, with traditions, with community. And this is also why I'm here in Brazil, because we are entering Carnival season. And Carnival is an example of emancipation, liberation, celebration. It's a Black celebration. And it's international. It's a global moment of celebrating Blackness, celebrating roots to Africa. And I do believe that we need to bring back celebration, but also a certain form of tradition, of rituals, and of symbolism into our lives. And society has removed that. It has created a clear separation between the religious and the civil, but also between the symbolic and what is considered productive. And then now we are obsessed with being productive, making sense. But we've lost the sense of awe. We've lost the sense of creating community around values, around beauty, around love. And this is something that Corner West, for instance, talks a lot about.
No, he does indeed.
Talking about love.
I've got a tight 60 seconds here, just 60 seconds to go, and I want to close on this note of back to your point about an illusion of choice in our politics in this country. In 60 seconds, I don't have time to unpack the illusion of choice, but I can ask this right quick: what choice are we missing? What choice is not being offered to us?
Community, the sense of community, the sense of creating community. We talk a lot about the individual, and now more and more people understand the systemic and how those two layers affect us and our existence. But we're missing something in the middle, which is community. It's bigger than the individual, but it's also something that allows us to create an identity together, to come together and to create links and connections. So I think that this is what's really missing, the middle section of socialization, and that's community, and that's connections, connectivity.
Mm-hmm. Franco-British social communicator, lived and worked in 5 countries and 3 continents, doing the kind of work to educate and deconstruct colonial power structures. I appreciate this conversation about colonial oppression in real time in Black History Month 2024.
Thank you for having me.
George Lashin, good to have you on this program. Thank you for your time, sir. All the best to you.
Thank you.
When we come forward, we'll talk with Jelani Natty about Black Men Hike, challenging stereotypes and building a supportive haven for Black men to heal, to bond, to conquer anxieties one step at a time. You are listening to Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network in Vermont. An excessive force lawsuit has been filed against Burlington police. The lawsuit filed by the ACLU of Vermont is over the 2020 arrest of a black teenager with disabilities. The boy's mother called cops in hopes of him having a learning experience for his behavior, but the suit claims police escalated things with threats and violence. City officials say the matter was investigated and it was found that the behavior of the police was in line with city policy. A powerful storm system is hitting Northern California. Flash flooding is a risk along with high winds, power outages, and possible landslides. Gusts have reached 55 to 70 miles per hour in some parts of the region, and in San Jose, at least 1 tree fell, injuring a child. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers got another road win last night. They won by 16 at Washington. 31 points from Kawhi Leonard. James Harden dropped 25. The Clippers are now 16 games over 500 and have the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. The Lakers are at Boston tonight. They need a win to get back to 500. 4:30 tip-off on TNT. The GoFundMe drive to build a new statue for Jackie Robinson in Wichita, Kansas has surpassed $140,000. The goal of $150,000 appears to be in reach. City officials want to build a new statue of Robinson to replace the one that was stolen on Saturday and destroyed. Robinson's statue was on display at McAdams Park in Wichita, home of League 42, a youth baseball league named in Robinson's honor. In 1947, Robinson became Major League Baseball's first black player. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Can't sleep with this cold.
Honey.
Honey?
Honey, you need NyQuil Severe Honey.
NyQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a dreamy honey taste.
Feeling better, honey? Honey? I'll take that as a yes.
Try NyQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu symptom relief. NyQuil Severe with honey flavor. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever. Honeylicious, best sleep with a cold. Medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. Get 6 times longer lasting freshness plus odor protection with Downy Unstoppables in-wash scent beads.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over, and if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So, no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
Some people just know the best places to eat around town. Those are the people who know to choose Allstate. They know exactly where to go to get exactly what you're wanting. They know where to find the spiciest hot pot, the gooeyest brownies, and the tenderest, most flavorful portobello steak. Those people also know that safe drivers save 40% with Allstate.
Saving 40% is based on the national average premium savings for all state auto customers with a clean driving record versus those without. Savings vary by state and vary based on how you buy, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
I am glad to have Jelani Natty in studio with us right now, fueled by personal peace found in nature's embrace. We just talked to Christian Cooper yesterday, the bird watcher, about what it means to be in nature. He has a new book out about a black man's perspective on being out in nature. But fueled by personal peace found in nature's embrace, Jelani Natty set a new course in 2019, Black Men Hike. Black Men Hike challenges stereotypes and builds a supportive haven for black men to heal, bond, and conquer anxieties one step at a time. He's an LA transplant by way of Northeast Ohio. Yeah. Well, it's good to have you in the studio. How are you today, sir?
Excellent. I appreciate you having me.
No, good to have you on. I just had a professor on earlier today's program from Miami of Ohio University.
Okay, yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So it's good to have another Buckeye.
Yes.
on our program today. So tell me about Black Men Hike.
Yeah. Take a little step back. Started back in 2019. I moved to LA in 2017, and with my wife, and really wasn't big into nature. Grew up in Northeast Ohio, Akron area. Shout out to LeBron James. But when I got
Miles, my board out will appreciate that.
All right, good. But when I got to LA, my wife kind of started to drag me along to get out and outdoors. She's always been outdoors, always like animal lover and all that stuff. And at first I was hesitant, but I figured I'd get the physical benefit from it. And as I started to hike more and more with my wife, I realized that every time I'd be out in nature, I realized that I'd feel something special. So I would feel recharged, lighter, and it was something that I started to take note of. And in about May of 2019, just being out here, kind of struggling with anxiety, the pressures of being out in LA. I kind of had like my first, I would say panic attack. And for me, I sat back and was like, all right, how do I focus on my mental health and bettering that? So I thought, let me take what I know, nature, and how it's benefited me, and try to get out in nature with some brothers. So I reached out June of 2019. It was only five of us that actually made it out. And we started Black Men Hike. And, fast forward to 2024, now we're a nonprofit, and Now we average
Cool.
about 80 brothers a month, every monthly hike.
Wow. Let me ask you if I can, and if I'm getting too close, tell me and I'll back up.
Oh, yeah.
And I ask this because I had one of these before earlier in my life and in my career, one of these panic attacks. What did it feel like for you in real time, and how long did it take you to figure out what was happening to you?
Man, honestly, I try to forget it, right?
Yeah,
but I remember it just like yesterday. It was the first time in my life where I felt like 1,000 thoughts were going through my mind at one time, and I just couldn't control I couldn't control the thoughts that were going in my mind. And the first thing I thought was like, oh man, like my parents are going to be disappointed, all that type of stuff, and my wife. And luckily I had two of my close fraternity brothers there to kind of help me through that moment. But once I got through that moment, I knew like this is not normal, right? And I need to do something about it, And for me, sometimes, the first thought is not necessarily therapy in our community when it comes to black men. Sometimes we try what we consider self-care, but it was something that was like, all right, I'm going to do everything I can so this never happens again, because I never wanted to feel that ever again in my life. And since then, I've been fortunate enough not to have one. Utilizing these. These habits.
I had one on a plane one time.
Yes.
I was sitting on a plane years ago. I don't know if I've ever said this publicly. I was sitting on a plane one time, and I was doing too much travel. And I just started weeping, not crying, but weeping uncontrollably. And I started hyperventilating. And I'm trying not to be seen. I'm sitting in first class. I'm trying not to be seen by people. And my assistant who travels with me wasn't with me that day. So I'm by myself in this seat. And I didn't know what was happening. It freaked me out.
Yes.
I did not know what was happening to me. All I knew was there was no way I was going to make that flight to New York, or to D.C. actually. I wasn't going to make that flight. And I sat there, I kind of froze, not knowing what to do. Emotionally, I was just distraught. I was tired. I've been moving too fast. I had some other issues going on in my life. And just didn't know how to process through that moment. And I sat there just crying, weeping, as I said. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, I don't think I can make this flight to D.C. I'm here in L.A. And I'm watching them do the final boarding. And I'm thinking to myself, if they close that door and I'm stuck on this flight for the next 6 hours, 5 hours, it ain't gonna be nothing nice. So I literally jumped up, asked the person next to me, excuse me, let me get out. I got out, got my bag out of the overhead, and ran off that plane. And the flight attendant says, she recognized me. Mr. Smiley, is everything okay? I said, yeah, I just can't make this flight today. And I just ran off the plane and called my assistant, who came back to the airport to pick me up, took me home. And it took me a couple of days of just resting to really kind of figure out what that was about. But that panic attack thing was scary, man.
It is.
It's scary.
It honestly is. You have no control over it. And, especially going through your first time and not understanding that, we don't really talk about these type of things. At least amongst my friends, we never talk about, our stress a lot. So to be able to experience that firsthand and not know what to do is probably one of the scariest moments in my life, to be honest.
What did it mean for you in your moment? I had nobody with me in my moment. In your moment, you said you had your fraternity brothers at least around you.
Yes.
You want to shout your fraternity out?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Alpha Phi Alpha.
Yeah, go ahead and do
the
that.
Oldest and coldest.
I go hate. I
appreciate it.
I tell folk all the time, I'm a proud Kappa man.
Yes.
But I tell people all the time that, first of all,
all
my hero is Dr. King.
Yes.
As this audience knows, I regard him as the greatest American this country's ever produced.
Shout out.
King was an alpha.
For sure.
And then just a shout out to your fraternity. Since we're in Black History Month, it's going to be all love today.
Thank you.
I ain't going to say it's no more the rest of the month. I'm gonna give you,
Just today.
Just today.
I got to pass.
I'll give the alpha some love.
Okay.
Just today. But the truth of the matter is, I was just quoting Du Bois earlier in our program today. The great black intellectual Du Bois, who once asked that question, would America have been America without her Negro people? That's Du Bois into the core. Of course, Du Bois, speaking of Black history, is the first African-American to graduate Harvard with a PhD.
Yes.
But Du Bois asked this question years ago: would America have been America without her Negro people? And the answer to that question is obviously absolutely not.
No.
The answer is no.
Right.
But let me just go a little deeper and give the Alpha some love.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just taking black folk out of the equation. If you take black folk out of the equation, the American democratic experiment falls flat.
Yes.
Because we are the conscience of this country.
Mm-hmm.
But the love for your fraternity that I do have, if you just take the alphas out of the American experience, it falls flat.
Thank you.
Because there goes Thurgood Marshall. There goes Dr. King.
Yes, yes.
Don't get me started. It's your fraternity.
Yeah.
You can run the list as good as I can.
Y'all hear that, right?
Yeah. But when you think about that, if you just take the alphas out of the American democratic experiment, it falls flat.
I appreciate that.
And if that ain't a shout out to a fraternity.
Yes, yes. I appreciate that.
I can't do no better than that.
Thank you. Thank
now,
you.
Enough of that alpha love. When we come forward, proud Kappa man that I am. When we come forward, more of our conversation about Black Men Hike with Jelani Natty.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Jelani Natty is our guest in this hour. He is the founder of Black Men Hike. He and his boys made this happen back in 2019, and they get together every month, in part for their own mental health, And that's a beautiful thing, to be able to admit that, to acknowledge that, but also to challenge stereotypes and to build this supportive network, supportive haven for black men to heal, bond, and conquer anxieties. As they say, one step at a time. We were talking earlier about his being an alpha, my being a kappa, another way that black men bond. Mm-hmm. So to my mind, I want to get your take on this. There just aren't, you can't have too many ways. You can't have too many options for black men to bond. I'm all for anything you can do that bonds black men. Yeah,
I agree.
Including hiking.
yes. And, at first it started off as something with friends, right? Mm-hmm. And, as brothers started having a great experience and understood like, oh, yeah, we're out here getting mental wellness and we're getting a workout, mm-hmm. we started to realize it was almost like the barbershop, right?
Oh, yeah.
It presented a place for us to have an opportunity to talk about the things that were going on in our life, advice, et cetera, et cetera. So when the word started to get out, people were drawn to that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize, talking about brotherhood,
yeah, sure.
I didn't realize at that time, because I was fortunate to have brotherhood when I came to LA, mm-hmm. that we were actually creating a place where brothers could, who were transplants or didn't have friends, could mm-hmm. find a place to come together. So mm-hmm. I say that to say, it created a space for all brothers to come to a common place and talk about the things that were going on in their life, get advice, and not only take benefit from the mental and physical aspect, but also build that social well-being as well.
Yeah. I mentioned on this program some days ago, we were talking about something, and I told a story about years ago when I took my entire company. I was filming a documentary in China, mm-hmm. And I had an opportunity to do something nice for my team, and so I took 38 of my employees mm-hmm. with me to China. And I was telling the story of what it was like to see these Chinese mm-hmm. and their reaction. We literally caused, when I say we stopped traffic, there were accidents. When you see 40 Negroes in China, a very homogenous society, mm-hmm. you got 40 black people walking down the street, it stops traffic, literally. Yes. And they want to take pictures, and they never see anything like that. I raised that to ask, what is it like when the good white people see 80 Negroes hiking up the side of the mountain? What is that like?
Man, it's, We've had all types of experiences.
I am certain. Yeah,
we've had situations where it's mid-June and somebody saying, "Hey, is this a Black History Month event?" Some people embrace us, but I think about our last hike that we did. Camping trip that we did in Yosemite, mm-hmm. right? So we had about 35 brothers.
That sounds beautiful, man.
Coming to Yosemite,
man. Yeah.
And honestly, we were It felt like we were stopping traffic.
Yeah.
Being there, I counted there were maybe like 3 other black families that whole weekend, but mm-hmm. we were 35 deep, and everywhere we went, it was almost like people didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things that, you kind of you got to be there and realize that you're doing it for your community, and you kind of just, block out the haters or the people that don't like it.
I'm laughing thinking, hey, at Yosemite that weekend, were they more scared of the black bears?
Right. Which ones? Right.
I digress. Our remaining moments with Jelani Natty when we come forward.
Thank you.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
I can say this on the first day of Black History Month. I was laughing with Jelani and Studio Miles. I was saying they probably gave the same instructions about the 35 brothers they give about the black bears. Don't leave no food out. Lock your doors. Who you more scared of, black bears or black men? I digress on that. What has been the takeaway for these brothers who are a part of Black Men Hike every month?
Oh man, I would say a sense of community, sense of serenity. I honestly feel like it starts to feel like a family.
Yeah.
If you're not there on a monthly basis, you feel like you're missing something. I've heard that from brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes brothers are going through things, and I've heard and talked to brothers after hikes and say, this is what I really needed to get me together. So the takeaway is just community and serenity and mental wellness. I would say.
If you can get your breath, while you're hiking, it does allow for two things: walking and talking.
Yes,
and that's important.
Sure.
Just to be engaged in dialogue with other black men.
For sure, and then we're mindful with that too as well. So we try to pick moderate hikes. Because our thought is we want when I look at Black Men Hike, I want there not to be a reason for you not to come. So we try to pick a trail that's moderate.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. We go at our own pace so that, we have brothers that, just might be 18 that come out with us. And we've had brothers as wise as, 75 come out and hike with us. And
How often do the Black Men Hike hikes take place?
Yeah, so we meet the first Saturday of every month. We hike all over SoCal area, as far west as Malibu, as far east as Rancho, as far south as Laguna, and as far north as Santa Clarita.
Yeah, that's a nice span. How do you? I'm curious. How do you? Do you want to contain the growth, or do you want to just let this thing just blow up? Because I'm trying to imagine you get so many brothers, y'all would be seen as taking over these facilities, these spaces.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
you're managing numbers as you go out and hike.
Yeah, so part of being in nature is also you also want to preserve it too. Right. So we're intentional about how many people we have on a hike, right? But what I foresee for Black Men Hike is to blow up and to have chapters all across the nation and maybe hikes multiple times a month. So obviously it takes resources to get there. But that's how I see it. Like, we have 80 people Sometimes when we do our joint unity hikes with some of our sister organizations, we have maybe 100. But we don't try to go over that because at the same time we want to preserve the trail.
You don't tear it up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I got it. So first Saturday of every month.
Yes.
You have a young people's thing you do?
Yeah. So quarterly we have a youth. It's called Young Kings.
Okay.
Young Black Kings hiking program where we take young black men between the age 11 and 18 out to nature and kind of get the same thing that we benefit, mentorship, and also just let them see what their city entails.
How often do you do the camping trips?
Camping trip we do twice a year.
Twice a year, yeah.
We have one in spring, which is more so like a driving, like a 2-hour drive. We try to the one that we have in April will be Joshua Tree.
I love Joshua Tree.
Yeah, beautiful,
Man,
beautiful. And then our fall one is a little bit further, and we try to do that.
That's cool.
On a road trip.
His name is Jelani Natty. The organization is called Black Men Hike. Again, challenging stereotypes, building a supportive haven for black men to heal, to bond, to conquer their anxieties, one step at a time. They're going to blow this up nationally with Black Men Hike chapters across the country. But again, as I also said earlier, you can never have too many events, too many opportunities, too many programs that allow for the bonding of black men. I love it. Jelani Natty, congratulations. Good to have you on our program.
Thank you, brother.
Just like that, 3 hours gone. Back tomorrow. No, tomorrow's Friday, right? Tomorrow's Friday. So tomorrow, the best of Tavis Smiley. 3 great conversations that you will be empowered, enlightened, inspired, and encouraged by. So thanks for tuning in today. And until tomorrow, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network in Vermont. An excessive force lawsuit has been filed against Burlington police. The lawsuit filed by the ACLU of Vermont is over the 2020 arrest of a black teenager with disabilities. The boy's mother called cops in hopes of him having a learning experience for his behavior, but the suit claims police escalated things with threats and violence. City officials say the matter was investigated and it was found that the behavior of the police was in line with city policy. A powerful storm system is hitting Northern California. Flash flooding is a risk along with high winds, power outages, and possible landslides. Gusts have reached 50